Now, Good Morning Nashville on News 2.
Yeah, we're going to start with this breaking news alert where Metro Police jump into the Cumberland River early this morning. This was the scene last hour as several ambulance units arrive and then depart from the scene. We have been tracking this story now for 2 hours. Police and medic crews are still there.
Yes, they are, and good morning to you. Welcome in. We're talking about this area just off of Neely's Bend Road in Madison, if you are just joining us this morning. Brett Martin has been live on the scene all morning long for us. Brett, the sun has come up. There's some light on the area now. What is the latest in the search?
Well, the search continues this morning as that sun comes up. Police continue to pour in, police, firefighters, ambulances, things like that. I'm going to step out of the way and show you. There's probably 20, 25 officers here, detectives out this way. Very intense situation, as you can imagine. We have seen 2 ambulances leave. There are also 2 other ambulances still on the scene. Now, what we know is that a woman drove into the Cumberland. An unknown amount of officers jumped in. 2 of those officers have been accounted for. And a source tells me that 1 officer is still missing. Another, and that same source also tells me that the woman was found on the riverbank and has been transported. Now, again, officers continuing to scour this area. We have seen at least 2 boats, maybe 3 boats. We also know the Coast Guard is here, as well as the Tennessee Wildlife. Again, crime scene units are out here working around. This is the Peeler Park area, if you're familiar with it. So the river runs off in the distance right there, and that's where they're searching. So we're going to continue to follow. We know that both of the public spokespersons for the police department and fire department are on scene here, and we're waiting for a press conference. And once we know more, we'll bring that to you. Live in Madison, Brett Martin, News 2.
All right, Brett, thanks. If those comments actually come while we're on the air, we'll just go right to it and we'll listen to it directly from them. So. Yes. The continuing coverage here, this breaking news alert, will be also online at WKRN.com and through the WKRN app. We are on the scene of a water rescue that occurred about 2 hours ago. We are expected to hear from police or fire spokespeople coming up shortly. But what happened? A woman threatened and then went ahead and drove her car directly into the river on this boat ramp, and officers went in to get her. We're trying to find the latest information. The woman was found on a riverbank. At least 1 of the officers came out. We're not sure about the second at this point, and so we're hoping to get that. The news conference comes up, and we'll go to it live.
Yeah, in about 5 minutes, it looks like around 6:45 is what we are expecting for this news conference.
The story that has been breaking out in the Madison area we've been following for the past 2 hours. Police and medic crews are still on the scene, and what we want to do is kind of get you up to date of what's going on here before we try to get to a police press conference.
Yes, this is the area just off of Neely's Bend Road in the Madison area. Brett Martin has been on the scene for us all morning long. This started, what time, Brett? Probably around 4:30 this morning that we heard the first calls about this.
Yeah, that's what we heard at about 4:30, and the call was that a woman was starting to drive into the river. I'm going to step out of the way and show you. What we know is that that woman did end up driving into the river, and officers, an unknown amount of officers, dove in to rescue her. Now, we've been told that 2 officers were pulled from the water. But the search continues to grow for that other officer that I'm told that is still unaccounted for. You can see they are searching by boat, by air right now. You're looking at a Metro helicopter kind of scouring the area around here. Now, the number of officers, like I mentioned, continue to grow out here trying to find that 1 officer unaccounted for. Now, I am told, a source tells me that the woman who drove into the river has been found. She was found on the riverbank and taken to a hospital. Now, we also saw 2 ambulances leaving. We are unsure of their condition. But again, right now we're waiting for that press conference. We've been told that it should happen in a matter of minutes. But right now the search continues. We have the Office of Emergency Management, Tennessee Wildlife, the Coast Guard, Metro Fire, of course, out here, and then the number of officers scouring this area as well as the riverbanks around the park.
All right. So we are, again, waiting for a press conference. We were hoping it would start about now, but we might be running a few minutes behind. Brett, we appreciate that. And the hope is obviously that he got to the shore somewhere, and what they need to do is find him on that shore.
Yes, that is the hope. If we were looking at one of our TDOT cameras earlier, too, that showed just a little bit further up on one of the bridges that there were some officers stationed up there as well. You know, you think
just trying to get a better view.
Getting a better view. So as soon as Don Aaron is on the scene and is there to update us with that news conference. We'll check back in there.
Thank you so much. We understand that Metro Police spokesperson Don Aaron is walking over toward the media right now. And this is up in Madison. This is where an officers, plural, went into the water to save a woman who apparently was trying to harm herself by driving her car into the water. All the officers except for one accounted for. Are we going to stay with this? Listen. All right, let's listen to his comments. It takes a second for everyone to get their mic up there, and he'll wait for that. This started around 4:30 this morning, and what an unbelievably frightening scene that must have been. He said, okay, so...
At 4:19 this morning, the police department received a call from a family member of a woman who said that she was contemplating suicide and was on the boat ramp here at Peeler Park. When officers arrived, they discovered her car at water's edge on the boat ramp. There were two officers who were trying to get her to come out of the car, to not go into the water. They talked with her for about 10 minutes or so. At 4:35 this morning, the Emergency Communication Center shows a record of officers being in the water. A sergeant who arrived just at the end of the scenario on the boat ramp reported that it appeared the woman, the 40-year-old woman, was about to get out of the car and come with the officers. Suddenly, the car went into gear and rolled down into the water off the ramp. The two officers, as the car was rolling, tried to make heroic efforts to save the woman who was in the vehicle. The boat ramp abruptly ended underwater. If you can imagine, the concrete ends underwater. They couldn't see where the boat ramp ended. Both of the officers slipped. One officer tried to grab the other. He was unsuccessful. So one officer was able to get back onto the bank. The other officer went into the river and was last seen in the water about 50 or 60 yards in the river. I am told that in that immediate area it's 15 feet deep. There are police officers now looking along the riverbank. There's a helicopter in the air from the police department scouring the riverbank, hoping that we can find our officer. He's an 18-year veteran. His family has not been notified, so his name is not being released. About an hour or so after the officer went into the water, fire department boats actually found the woman who was in the car. She was able to get out of her submerged vehicle and made it to a riverbank about 50 or 60 yards from the boat ramp. So she has been taken to a hospital. The officer who was in the water with our unaccounted for officer has also been taken to a hospital to be checked out. As you can imagine, the water in the Cumberland River this morning is very cold. Efforts, again, are continuing. Rescue efforts are continuing to try to find our officer.
How large are the efforts? Can you talk about the magnitude of, TWRA, OEM, fire department? Talk about the amount of people.
There are several boats in the water. There are divers going into the water. The TWRA is here. We are receiving assistance, to my understanding, from the Tennessee Highway Patrol. Other agencies have also offered assistance.
Can you talk about the condition of that initial officer who was able to be taken to the hospital?
Well, everyone's concern is for the officer who is unaccounted for, his as well. I mean, he's gone to the hospital due to being in that very cold water. He heroically tried to save not only the woman, but his fellow officer.
How about the condition of the woman? You said she was transported?
She's been transported. I do not know her condition. I know that she's 40 years old, and the officers were here trying to save her life after a report that she was at the end of the boat ramp contemplating suicide.
So 15 feet deep, the water. Can you talk a little bit more about the condition of the water underneath there?
I cannot.
Can you just reiterate how many officers went into the water in total?
There were two officers who went into the water all the way. Their sergeant was also here. He went in partially. Other officers came to the scene. Other persons from the fire department came to the scene. They started to go into the water, but it is just so cold that they couldn't stand it for less than a minute, just a few seconds before they had to come out.
So 2 officers went into the water all the way. 1 is still missing. The other was transported. So only 1 officer has been transported to the hospital.
True.
Don, can you talk about how many divers are in the water or boats or stuff along those lines?
I cannot. The fire department has its personnel here.
Okay.
They can speak to how many divers and how many qualified divers they have, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. So Brian House with the Nashville Fire Department. Brian, do you have
Let me
that
say
answer?
this. We need the thoughts and prayers of the city for this police officer.
Very sorry. So, Brian, can you talk about how many divers, how many boats? Talk about what you're all doing to find this officer this morning.
Total number of divers, I don't know, but we do have dive teams in there right now. They're starting their search at the location at which the officer was last seen, and then they'll work their way downstream. The current is moving very fast. The water's very cold. It is about 15 feet deep. We're hopeful that we don't have to search far. We have 3 boats in the water currently with Nashville Fire Department and the Office of Emergency Management. We are awaiting, from what I understand, THP has offered assistance. TWRA is offering help as well, will be aiding us. And so at that point, that's where our resources right now. We are not going to stop searching until we find him.
How
Can you
large
talk about
is the
how?
search
Yeah, I was going
area?
to say, how big are you searching?
Currently, we are searching the immediate area where the officer went down. We are hopeful that that is the location where he's at. Beyond that, it depends on what the divers see and what the boats find at this point.
We heard a report that a crew had moved from one bridge further downstream to continue searching. Are you guys going to keep moving downstream? You said you're also searching the immediate area. What you went missing?
The boats obviously can go much farther than the divers, so they're going to search as far as they need to go. Like I said, the current is moving very quickly. I mean, for a car to float off some 40 yards in the water from a boat ramp gives you a sense of how quickly it's moving right now.
And that officer was last seen 50 to 60 yards from the shore, correct?
From the boat ramp,
From
correct.
the boat ramp. Okay, so a strong swimmer, I mean, would it be possible to get off to the shore? Could he be lying somewhere, along the shore?
We hope so.
Is that what
There are officers and our folks that are searching the banks as well in the hopes that perhaps he got out on his own. We really hope that's the case.
Any plans to increase the search from here on out?
Well, we are awaiting assistance from TWRA at this point. THP may be aiding as well. We're not going to turn down help at this point. But right now we feel like we've got a good search going, and we're hopeful that we find him soon and don't need those resources. We need this. We need to find him quickly. Time is of the essence, and we need to do this.
49 degrees might not sound that cold to some people when you think about like 30 degrees, but if you're in that water and you are struggling against the current, explain what those conditions, how tough those conditions are for the human body.
And the water temperature alone is going to be extraordinarily dangerous for anybody who's in the water. Add to the fact of somebody who is fighting against it and they're just expelling energy. It's extremely dangerous for anybody to be in that kind of situation, and still we're hopeful.
Sounds like a tense situation. I know fire department is a brotherhood, police department is a brotherhood. These are your, police brothers. You guys all serve the city of Nashville. What's going through all of your minds this morning?
I don't want to speak for the police department, but I mean, none of us get into this job for any other reason other than to help people. And these officers who went in the water today, they did it to help people, to help somebody who needed help. And it's hard to underscore the difficulty of dealing with this for the folks who do put their lives on the line every day, whether it's fire, whether it's paramedics, whether it's police officers. We're hopeful, but this is not easy. And we'll try to give you guys updates as we can. At this point, we're just going to be searching until we find him.
All right, thank you. Hope your crews are safe out there.
So obviously, somewhat desperate situation there on the banks of the Cumberland River, where we have one officer unaccounted for now in water that was described as hard to even walk-in from a moment. And everyone's just hoping he made it to the banks.
Yeah, they had 2 officers go in, excuse me, after a woman to try and help her. One of those officers did make it out, one unaccounted for, but then another sergeant partially in the water, and some other officers that responded that tried to get into the water and couldn't stay long to help search because it was so chilly.
We're going to continue to update this story throughout Good Morning America, on air and online, and leave you with the words of police spokesperson Don Aaron asking the city for their hopes and prayers right now for that officer and his family.
When you saw him coming, you knew that you were going to exchange a few insults, barbs, and shake hands.
The Metro Police Department shaken to the core after the death of an officer in the line of duty.
Now, News 2 at 4.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bob Mueller.
And I'm Samantha Fisher. Thank you for joining us. We are learning new information on what happened to Officer Eric Mumaw. Mumaw died this morning. The 44-year-old came to Nashville from Columbus, Ohio, and he served with the Metro Police Department for the last 18 years. And during that time, he has been honored several times. In 2011, he was honored with Metro's Life-Saving Award.
Now, the body of Officer Mumaw is now at a funeral home in Madison. The hearse now surrounded by Metro Police officers at salute. A memorial service for Officer Eric Mumaw is scheduled for noon on Monday at the Cornerstone Church on Old Hickory Boulevard in Madison. There will be a visitation before the service, and our thanks to Sabrina Hall for this video.
We just got this picture back from the site of where this tragedy took place. No more investigators are at Peeler Park Greenway, but this tribute to Officer Mumaw stands.
We have team coverage this afternoon. News 2's Chris Bungard is outside the police headquarters of the Fraternal Order of Police.
And Stephanie Langston is in our studio with new information on the woman under criminal investigation in connection to his death.
But first, a look at what happened this morning. Flags on city buildings now fly at half staff in memory of Officer Eric Mumaw. He and shift partner Nick Diamond responded to the Peeler Park Greenway trailhead around 4 o'clock this morning. A woman there was threatening to commit suicide.
These officers were here this morning to save a life. And Officer Mumaw died truly trying to save the life of someone else.
Julie Glisson was at the very edge, threatening to drive into the river when the 2 officers tried to save her. Suddenly, the vehicle began.
Well, yeah, Officer Mumaw was struggling. He was in despair in the river, and Officer Diamond was trying to grab him and actually had slight contact with him at one point, but could not maintain the grip. And you understand how cold the water was and the shock to the body. And Officer Diamond was unable to continue his rescue efforts for fear of losing his own life.
A firefighter recovered the body of Officer Mumaw. A procession of heartbroken comrades escorted him away from the river where he died. Nearby, a memorial from neighbors, a quickly written sign to honor the officer, remembered for his sense of humor and for his love of the midnight shift. The sign reads, "Rest in peace, Officer Eric. Thank you for your service." Now, the woman involved is Julie Glisson. Firefighters found her on the bank of the river and took her to a hospital. She was described as being impaired. She's also under criminal investigation. We'll have more on that in a moment. As funeral plans are made for the police officer, his colleagues will have grief counseling available.
Our Chris Bungard is at the headquarters of the Fraternal Order of Police with more on this.
Well, as you mentioned, we're out here at the Nashville headquarters of the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police. On the wall behind me, the pictures of 35 officers who have died in the line of duty since 1903. Sadly, space will be made here soon for Eric Mumaw. Police officers also have a support system for the officer who survived. Police car after police car could be seen at Nashville's Vanderbilt Medical Center. Inside the huge facility was veteran Madison Precinct Officer Nick Diamond, who survived the water rescue of a suicidal woman Thursday morning while his longtime close colleague died. In front of a memorial to another fallen Nashville officer from a dozen years ago, Sergeant Bob Weaver shared how difficult this day is for the department.
It's a huge impact on the department. department. We will be dealing with this for a long time to come. We are fortunate that our department has resources available.
The men and women in blue at Vanderbilt said Officer Diamond was good, but very, very emotional, knowing it cost his colleague's life to help save the woman who had gone into the river in her car. Sergeant Weaver says every one of those at the tragic scene will undergo what is called critical incident debriefing over the next 2 to 5 days with psychologists and chaplains.
Our behavioral services unit was out there this morning offering peer counseling to officers involved and those that are friends and colleagues of Officer Mumaw. There's multiple levels of dealing with a critical incident. You care for the officers that have survived the incident. You want to be there to support them. You want to be there to assist them as they process this. This is a huge loss, and everybody's going to go through the stages of grief, denial, all those.
But there is no greater event than a fallen officer to bring the men and women in blue together for help and support. Now, this is a difficult day for the sergeant as well. Personally, Officer Mumaw was a close friend of the sergeant. His remembrance tonight at 6. Reporting live, Chris Bungart, News 2.
Thank you for bringing us that interview, Chris. Tonight, the Metro Courthouse, Korean Veterans Bridge, and other buildings will be lit in blue to honor Officer Mumaw.
A nice salute. We also have an email account for those wanting to send condolences to Officer Eric Mumaw's family and colleagues. That email account, officermumaw@nashville.gov. You know, Nashville has tears in its eyes this afternoon. Mayor Megan Barry was in New York today, but kept in contact with her office about the tragedy here in Nashville. I spoke to her shortly ago on the phone.
He was a true hero and one of those great first responders that rushed toward danger without even thinking about himself. And he had a history of doing that. I had the pleasure of being with him right before Christmas when we were doing Shop with a Cop, and he was just what you expect out of somebody like him. He was joyful and happy and just had a deep, deep love for our city. And today that deep love ended in his life, and we are just all so sad.
Law enforcement officers escorted his body from the funeral home here to Cornerstone Church. There were motorcycle officers there, patrol cars there, as well as the hearse carrying his body went to Cornerstone Church. We did find out that any and all law enforcement agencies that want to participate in the procession back here to the funeral home are able to do that. So you'll see a lot of blue lights, a lot of law enforcement officers taking part in that processional back here to the funeral home. We also expect there to be a lot of people lining the route to show their support for the men and women in blue, as well as Officer Mumaw's family. Reporting live from Madison, Joseph Pleasant.
Joseph, thanks so much. In just a moment, Bob Mueller will join us from the studio, and he will have the state chaplain for the state police, I believe, with him in that studio. And we'll let them talk a little bit about the service that will be happening here and how you actually honor a man who died so heroically in the line of duty. We hope you can stay around for that.
It was an emotional day as Officer Eric Mumaw was honored during a final service in his home state of Ohio.
He died last Thursday trying to save a suicidal woman. Thousands attended his memorial in Nashville. This is Jessica Jaglois is in Ohio, where the funeral service was more intimate, but just as profound.
A small but powerful service here at Linworth Baptist Church for Officer Eric Mumaw's family and friends. But the Nashville contingent was strong, with the Chief of Police and Mayor Megan Barry making the trip to honor Officer Mumaw one last time. As bagpipes mournfully sing Amazing Grace, Officer Eric Mumaw's mother stands solemn and silent outside the church after her son's service. Mayor Megan Meganberry offered words of support inside the church. News cameras weren't allowed, but Metro Police snapped these pictures. The mayor told News 2 this service was a continuation of the one held in Nashville on Monday.
We continue to celebrate and grieve for Eric and his family, and to be here today and to see the outpouring of support in this community for his family is really overwhelming.
Metro Police Chief Steve Anderson also made the trip to Ohio. He told us how this service was different than the one in Madison, which drew over 2,000 people to Cornerstone Church.
More intimate, close family, friends that knew him here, people that worked with him, church members, people that he attended church with here with his mother. So very fitting and a very good tribute to Eric.
Chief Anderson and Mayor Berry told us it was important for them to be here, for Officer Mumaw's mother, his friends and co-workers, and for him.
Eric had two homes. He had a home in Nashville. The Madison community especially loved him there. He gave his life right there. But he had a home here in Ohio, and you can see the outpouring here, family, friends, police officers that he worked together with in times past.
Officer Mumaw will now be laid to rest about an hour away in Mount Vernon, Ohio, where his ashes will be buried. Reporting in Worthington, Ohio, I'm Jessica Jaglois, News 2.
And News 2 also spoke with Columbus police about escorting the processional to the cemetery and what that meant to them. We'll have more on that story tonight here on News 2 at 5.
Members of the Metro Police Department were in Ohio today to celebrate the life of fallen police officer Eric Mumaw. Chief Anderson and Mayor Meganberry attended his final service just outside Columbus. They wanted to show their support. News 2's Jessica Jaglois spoke with local officers who were also there to support Officer Mumaw's family in another way.
A processional of Officer Eric Mumaw's family, friends, and co-workers leave Linworth Baptist Church to head to Officer Mumaw's final resting place. Members of the Metro Nashville Police Department also in the processional, including Chief Steve Anderson.
I'm so grateful to the Columbus Police Department, to all the surrounding police departments here that came out today to support us, to make sure that his life was celebrated in a manner fitting of him.
30 officers with the Columbus Police Department and troopers with the Ohio State Highway Patrol led the processional on the hour-long drive.
Anybody that loses a life trying to save another life is, you know, it's heroic at the least, but it's something that impacts all of us.
Columbus police also helped direct traffic and with parking at the church. Even though it meant standing in below freezing weather, members of the department called it an honor.
It's important for us to show unity amongst the different departments throughout the nation, not just here in Central Ohio. It is a brother officer. We stand united as one, so we're honored to be part of it.
Mayor Meganberry said Nashville is also standing united with Officer Mumaw's grieving family.
I think that his family was very grateful to have the overwhelming support of all of the first responders who were here, especially the Nashville police officers who are here today.
Those officers were also at the Memorial Gardens to say their final goodbyes when Officer Mumaw's ashes were laid to rest. Jessica Jaglois, News 2.
Officer Mumaw's family asked that memorial contributions be made to the Nashville Fraternal Order of Police. And for that information, just visit our website, WKRN.com.